Exposing the horrors of racism in the American South wasn't easy, but investigative journalist Ida B. Wells made it her mission. Ida was born into slavery in 1862. After the Civil War, her family gained their freedom. Ida came of age during Reconstruction, a period of hope.
Yes, ma'am. And despite losing her parents and one of her siblings to the yellow fever epidemic, Wells endured these hardships, pushing on towards her calling of becoming a prolific writer, a journalist, and the first woman co-owner of a major newspaper. Take another look at this.
In 1889, Ida bought a share in the Memphis Free Speech and Headlight, becoming the first female co-owner and editor of a Black newspaper in the United States. Her goal was to create material about Black people for Black people. On March 9, 1892, a racist white mob lynched Ida's friend Thomas Moss and two of his colleagues. Thomas had run a successful grocery store, which the white people found threatening.
Yeah, nothing has much changed. Ida B. Wells, she rattled the status quo by exposing the real reasons behind lynchings in the South and dispelled the myth that white supremacists were using to orchestrate, not just orchestrate, to orchestrate, carry out lynchings of Black men. They said that Black men were rampant in raping white women. None of that was true. And Ida B. Wells exposed the truth. Take a look.
Motivated by the horrific murder of her friend, Ida channeled her fear and anger into her work and started a crusade against lynching in America. It made Ida a target. When she wrote an editorial arguing that white women could, in fact, be attracted to Black men, challenging a key myth that racists used to justify their actions, a mob burned down her office, forcing Ida to flee to the North. There, Ida continued to raise awareness about the extent of lynching in America, something many people in the North simply did not know about. She documented 728 lynching cases between 1884 and 1892, wrote pamphlets to share her findings across the country, and in 1922, publicly supported an anti-lynching bill that went before Congress.
And I mean, the courage, Mayor, that it took for Ida B. Wells to do that. I mean, just riveting. And we don't have people who don't face some of the same threats in a similar way that even have the courage that she had in her pinky. They don't have that type of courage, but she really changed the game.
Yeah, I wish, and that's that the piece we just saw is powerful talking about this sister, but it's still lacking, right? It's still not enough to talk about her long resume and her commitment to Black excellence. They called her an anti-lynch activist, she was. They call her an co-owner of a newspaper, and she was, but they forget so much. What it meant to be a feminist back then, a Black feminist, and how she was targeted, not just by white people and white mobs, but she was also targeted by sometimes even people on our side. Black civil rights people at that time were against her because she was so outspoken about the truth of what it takes to be a 4-hour people. Also, I think it's important, we could call it a white mob, but it does a disservice if you live out the fact that it was sheriff deputies that rode that electric car train down there to help kill her friends, right? It was the sheriff department that allowed the taking of the owner of People's Grocery that was competing with the white grocery store right across the street and doing just as good, if not better, which is the real reason all of this happened, right? It was the sheriff deputies that opened that police station that let them be taken from those jails and taken down the street and be shot at the rail yard. All of this had something to do with the fire that was lit in Ida, not to mention she was born in slavery. Let's get to the fact about what white people were using lynching as a tool to say they were protecting white women from rape of Black men. Now, the true power structure in the South was white men. All of the power in this time was white men. So the idea that Black men were raping white women doesn't ring true. And it also excludes the fact that we know the danger that Black women face. Whenever white men wanted to take a Black woman, they did it. And where were the lynching of white men for raping Black women? It didn't exist. So Ida was saying something different and louder, even in the words that she didn't say. When she talked about white women being attracted to Black men.
Come on.
Spoke to a different problem that white men had, and she warned them. In one of her writings, she actually said, white men ought to be careful saying
Yes, she did.
about your black or your white women because it may say something, right? And that's when white people said her living, her existence was the patience of white Southern whites, and people should kill her. That was the threat before her place was burned down. Those threats sound similar to when you listen to what our politicians are saying about black people, our history in Florida, our history in Arkansas, and what the governors are doing in Texas and those states, right? We're hearing the same language. The only difference is this sister kept going. Where's our kept going fighters right now? Those who have the gall to keep going in the face of all of this. This is 20 years after she had to leave Memphis because of life threatened. She still went back down to Elaine, Arkansas. And so for people who don't understand geography, Elaine, Arkansas, where the massacre took place, is right across the bridge from Memphis. So where they tried to kill her, she went right back and still reported on the race riots. Not afraid, unbalked, and
unbossed. That's it. It's called courage. And Mary, the point that you were making about how some black people always in every generation, you're gonna find some black folks that's gonna do the caping for, they are the black faces, as you named, in the wrong places, the wrong black faces in them high places, because they have so much self-hate, and they want to be in the in crowd. They want to be invited to the parties. They want to make sure that they get the trinkets. Meanwhile, their people suffer. Ida B. Wells, she was a businesswoman. As we know, she had to raise her siblings. She went to Memphis to live with an aunt. And while we talking about Memphis. All right, what just happened to Tyree Nichols? But she went to Memphis when her parents died because of the yellow fever epidemic, and I believe it was her younger brother that died. She had other siblings that she had to take care of. She was very young, and then she went to Memphis to live with her aunt. And even that, born in 1862, want folks to understand this, the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, 1865, born into slavery. And then think about her parents actually lived their lives, most of their lives, in slavery. But yet this woman, this magnificent woman, did not let any of what life threw at her keep her down. She used every single one of those life's lessons, and she put that into energy towards lifting up black people. One of the things that they did say in that clip, Mayor, and they were leaving the rest for us to say, that's what that was about. One of the things that they did point out was the fact that she wanted to see the black experience elevated. She talked about the World Exposition and how there were no black people there. And the only black person that really had a stage there was the one and only Frederick Douglass. She critiqued that to say he wasn't even there because the United States put him there. He was there because Haiti brought him in. The irony of all of that, and the more things change, the more they stay the same.
My mind. And what's said does not need to be repeated.
Hey, you better say that. Now, although she never lived to see it come to pass, and it is the United States finally passing anti-lynching law, the Emmett Till anti-lynching law, or act to be more specific, of 2022, that passed the House of Representatives on February 28th of 2022. You heard me right. February 28th of 2022, and a companion bill passed in the United States Senate on March the 7th, 2022. It only took this country over 150 years, like 157 years, if we start counting from the year 1865. It only took them 157 years, Mayor, that's all, to finally pass an anti-lynching law after all that black people endured at the hands of domestic white terrorism in this country.
And if we're honest about it, sis, where are we now? If that's the track record of this country, we got a long time to go before we are anywhere close to equity, because their track record, they're slow. The molasses pace at which they are fighting for black equity tells us, in your life and my life, we might not see it, but we know that arc is real, and we're still trying to bend it.
Yeah, we are. We will never, talking about never give in, never give up, never give out, baby. We will not. And let's put up some of her powerful words. One of my favorite quotes from the one and only Ida B. Wells. In slave times, the Negro was kept subservient and submissive by the frequency and severity of the scourging. But with freedom, a new system of intimidation came into vogue. The Negro was not only whipped and scourged, he was killed. Woo, Mayor. Hey, what just happened to Tyree? I mean, she's speaking to us today, like in this very, very moment. What she was laying down is that, yeah, black folks had it bad because they were chattel. So they were whooped and demonized and denied of their humanity. But now, since freedom came, quote, air quotes, oh yeah, all of that, and they are killed. Ida B. Wells-Barnett, the one and the only, and if only, and Mayor, I agree with you, we need more of her spirit from our people right now on this day. She laid the path for us. All we got to do is step in those footsteps and put some 21st century on it, and we are there.
Indeed. That's a powerful sister. I enjoy. One thing that's powerful to me about her was she don't get credit for being a co-founder of the NAACP, but she is, and she was radical in her thinking, even to the point that you and I talked about earlier when we said, that sister said every black family should have a Winchester.
Right? Yes, she did. Yes, she did. To defend themselves against white supremacist violence. Let's underscore that and put an exclamation point on it. Yes, she did.